policies or issues or events coming up, and kind of so we can give you the most detail possible. It's easier in voice than through text to get all the information to you, and then you guys can answer or ask questions. Um, Give us feedback about what you like, what you didn't like, because we're always trying to do better. We're always trying to make this tournament um, as great as it can be. So your feedback is super valuable to us. Tonight we're mostly going to be talking about the upcoming draft and what that means for our drafting teams, as well as our pre-mades. We're sort of going to talk about a little bit what's going to be happening after the draft, and then a few things about production. Typically, how these meetings go is we'll list the agenda just as I have, and then we'll hit the first point, which will be about the draft, and then if there are any questions or concerns, we'll do that about or right after then, and then we'll do that for each talking point. So if you have questions about the preseason, save them for when we talk about the preseason, and then at the very end, we'll open it up for any questions that we didn't have a topic to address. Um, Typically, these meetings run about an hour to an hour and a half, sometimes a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, depending on what's going on kind of in the community at that point in time. So to get started, let me just pull up my agenda here. Hold on. Alrighty. So as we all should know, the draft is coming up this Thursday, December 6th. We are starting it at 8 p.m. There will be a more formal announcement in the server just so the whole community is aware, but it's going to be this Thursday, like I said, December 6th, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The majors draft will happen first, followed by the minors draft. And the way it's going to work is we'll have all of the coaches or whoever's drafting um, in a lobby with two of our admins. Um, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, someone else on the admin team, I believe we did 90 seconds for draft picks.
60.
60?
Last season we did 90. This season we're doing 60.
Okay, so 60 seconds per pick. It's honestly more than enough time once you get to know the players you want. Hopefully, you've all have taken advantage of the draft board that Luna painstakingly created for us. It's a really, really cool tool, so I hope you guys do get the chance to use it.
Yeah,
So like I said,
and we highly recommend you be prepared with lots of backups if you don't get your first pick.
Right, and we do this. This is also a major point. Talk to the players before you plan on draft. Like, as nice as it is to be drafted, you just want to make sure the person you're drafting is able to fit into kind of your scheme, your scheduling. So just make sure that the people you're considering drafting are aware that you're considering them. So after you do all that, we'll go into the draft. You'll be in the lobby with two admins. You'll have 60 seconds. The draft order will be determined tomorrow, and we'll release that to you so you can sort of prepare your picks. I know it's kind of hard to gauge who's going to go where, but just so you have a general idea. The order will be in a snake format. So what that means is if I were the first pick, and let's say it's a three-person draft, so it's going to go Bort, Abyssal, Ad. I would go first, then Abyssal, then Ad. Ad would go again, then Abyssal, then me, and it'll go like in that order, sort of in a snake pattern, until 6 rounds are up. So we'll do that for majors and minors, and we'll be simultaneously running a broadcast. So what's going to happen is as the picks are coming in, one admin is going to be controlling the time, the other is going to be updating a spreadsheet on our side where we can see the picks, and then that'll be fed into who's running the broadcast, our producers, and they'll be able to put on a pretty cool show, hopefully an awesome show for you guys or all the players watching. In the next few days, or not in the next few days, but hopefully within the next day or two, you're going to get a message from Necra with just some general questions, kind of like what you're looking for in a player. Kind of, you don't have to give too many details if you don't want to. You can give as many details as you'd like, but just sort of so the the broadcast team has some kind of some fluff to add to the broadcast other than team A picked player one, because they really do want to do it up. So let's try to give them as much as we can, within reason. Um, we also are planning on announcing the pre-made teams during the draft. We are still kind of workshopping where in the broadcast we want to do it, but we're expecting to do it in the broadcast. So after the draft, we'll be able to know the entire tournament, both majors and minors, the teams. Um, so that'll be really cool, I think. Um, so the other thing of real priority, because last season was a huge bummer. Don't leak. Um, it's just the anticipation of it is just not it's not fun when it's spoiled by someone else's stream or someone posting in the Discord. So let's just keep it fun. If you really want to message the player you just drafted, do it in private and don't let it leak out. We'd be really upset if that happened, and I don't want to have to deal with that again. Um, Another important note for the draft, we do want all drafting teams to keep their team SR within the SR range or or under the SR limit that we've established, which is 3,100 for majors and 2,500 for minors. And I'll just quickly go into how we came up with those numbers. So what we did is we took everyone's got a tournament SR. So what that is we looked at the past 4 seasons for every player, and we took their highest SR. So if in season 10 I was 2,900, but now I'm 2,700, my tournament SR would be 29. And then we took the average of the player pool for both majors and minors for their tournament SR, and then we added a bit of a cushion on top, just so teams could have a little bit more flexibility to play with. Um, so for minors we came up with 25, and majors we came up with 31, which is I would say right about what we wanted it when we were first workshopping the 2 divisions anyway. So I think from the admin team we're pretty happy with these numbers. um, Towards the end I definitely want to hear what you guys think about all of this, and I can definitely go back over. I know it's a lot of information. So we have a few more things about the draft, and then we can open it up to some questions regarding the draft. Pre-mades, immediately following the draft, you are allowed to sign players to your team. Um, but be warned, you can still replace the player if they want to go to a different team, and vice versa. Rosters are not locked until January 3rd, I believe. So you do have some flexibility, and so do players. So we have to sort of keep our heads on a swivel with that, because like I said, just because you have an agreement with the player doesn't mean things can change before January 3rd, for either the team or the player. All teams can post in team tryouts now. You don't have to spam it, but if you're hosting a new tryout, definitely post it again, just so people who maybe didn't see the first one are aware. Um, you don't have to post every day. Join the Discord. We're having one next week, but if you're about to have one in 10 minutes, throw it up there for sure, because we definitely want as much participation as possible from the community. And one thing as coaches and as team reps and as team captains, just do your best during tryouts to keep your eyes peeled for suspicious play. Obviously, you're gonna have good players. You're gonna have people popping off, but if it's a consistent thing where they're consistently outplaying, it doesn't mean they're a Smurf. It doesn't mean they're, um, trying to get an unfair advantage. But just keep an eye out, and maybe shoot us a message so we can also keep an eye out, because the integrity um, of the games that we hold is paramount, to having a good tournament. So we really don't want that sullied by someone um, playing dishonestly. So please do your best to do that. Obviously, there's only so much you can do. Some people are really good at deceiving, but really please do keep an eye out. I think that is about it for the draft. I don't know if any of the other admins have anything they'd like to add.
One point that I want to touch on is you talked about players being able to swap teams, the exception is drafted players. Those are kind of
Correct.
locked in for stage 1. If a player gets drafted and then wants to swap teams, they can't join that team until stage 2.
And that's just because the concern is that not that pre-mades, I don't think any pre-mades have done this, but since pre-mades are coming in with a pretty distinct advantage in that their team is already created and they can have chemistry and they can already be practicing, we don't want them to be able to poach isn't the right word, but get the unfair advantage where they have access to players before drafted teams do. So it's just a little bit of security, and that's why we also say talk to the players before you draft them. Because if I were drafting and I was going to draft Ad, and I didn't talk to him, and he does not want to be on my team, it's just a bad situation. But if I approached him and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about drafting you. How would you feel about playing on my team?" He says, "Oh, I don't want to." Then I would know that maybe he isn't a good fit. So just do a little bit of due diligence and make sure that you have a general idea of who you want. Of course, if your back is up against the wall, you just make the pick. But try to know who you're picking.
Yeah, for your first couple round picks, talk to them. Down
sure.
towards the end in the 5th and 6th round, it's kind of a crapshoot.
So did anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns about the draft process, or anything related to the draft?
Is it okay if I speak up for a bit?
Sure.
So, if a player is drafted by a team he doesn't want to be on, is it possible that he can just like outright deny that draft and not be on that team?
He can, but he would not be able to play in stage 1.
Oh, okay. Thank
That's
you.
Yeah, that's why we'd really like you guys to have a little bit of a relationship with the player before you draft them. Anyone else have anything?
Actually, one more thing. If a player isn't on the draft board but he's eligible to play, like he's a free agent, but is it possible for him to still get picked up after the draft and still play in stage 1?
Correct. So we had a draft, or I guess November 28th was our cutoff for signups to be eligible for the draft.
Mhm.
So anything after that, we accept signups throughout the entire season. It's just everything after November 28th, they would be ineligible for the draft. But then as soon as the draft is over, they're eligible to be picked up by any team.
Okay, thank you.
If no one has anything else, we can quickly go into the post-draft preseason stage. Yep. I don't have the date on top of my head, but if I had to imagine, it would be a day or two before roster lock.
Yeah, it'll be right around the new year.
But then, of course, they're still welcome to sign up. They just would have to wait until stage 2 to play. So this actually is a good kind of transition to our next point. I'll talk a little bit about rosters. So as we all should know, we have 10 spaces on an Owlet team roster. With the draft, it'll be 6 rounds. So each draft team will still have 4 spaces to fill. Pre-mades can vary. Some came in with as little as 6. Some came in with a full 10. So there will be some variation in team size, but you do have 10 spaces to play with. We definitely recommend doing your best to definitely try to have more than 6. You don't have to have a full 10. I would say like 8 or none is probably a really good number, but you also have 2 sub role roster spots. For those of you that were with us with season 1, it's the old inactive roster slots. Now we changed it to substitute spots. And Ad, could you explain how the substitutes work?
All right. So first of all, everything about substitutes is laid out in the rulebook if you want to reference it later. But The real quick version is that substitutes are only allowed to play up to a maximum of, I believe, 5 maps per stage. And the SR of someone on the substitute roster has to be below the team's average. Other than that, there's no real requirements for subs. You can, if you don't use one for any map, that's fine. There's no minimum. They don't have to play the 5 maps. It's just to help teams out in a spot where their main roster, maybe they can't field all 6.
Cool. Thank you. So with that, so as you're filling out your rosters, we'll be entering what we call our preseason, which is an optional sort of, it's a preseason, so you'll get to play uh, basically glorified scrims within Owlet. It's kind of figure out, your lineups, who, maybe figure out those last 2 roster spots or so, who you like as a sub. Um, and kind of get a good feeling, get some chemistry going with your teams. It's also a chance for our broadcasters to kind of shake any rust off or get their feet wet for the first time and try to um, get in the rhythm of broadcasting Owlet matches. So it's a really fun kind of experimental time where everyone's still kind of learning the process. So I definitely recommend that your teams join. It's not mandatory. If you guys would rather do your own thing, kind of be secretive and elusive, you can do that too. Um, but it's definitely fun, and it definitely lets you see the competition. Um, so definitely, join the preseason. Then following the preseason, that's where we'll have the roster lock. I believe the holidays are in between, so there will be a little bit of downtime. That's just the nature of the season, because we didn't want to wait forever to start the season, so we got kind of stuck straddling the holidays. Um, so if you just bear with us through that lull, as soon as the new year starts, we'll have roster lock, and then we'll get right into stage 1. So did anybody have any questions about the post draft process or the preseason or anything? Basically, from the end of the draft to January 3rd, I think, is roster lock.
Yeah. So with the preseason, is it just on that Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday? Are the days for it?
For the official preseason, yes. Anything outside of that, you're always welcome to set up scrims. If there's a demand for it, we could maybe try to facilitate. I can't promise anything, but we could look into extending the preseason a little bit if there is the demand and we can pull it off. Um, we can do that, but right now it is just that weekend, yes, or I guess the weekend going into the next week.
Just one question about subs. So let's say we drop 1 or 2 players from our 8 or 9, and we want to activate one of the subs as like a full-time player. Can we do that, or are they locked as a sub for that stage?
But how did we flesh that out, Ad?
I'm gonna just pull it up on the rulebook real quick.
Because I know we
had
did have a stipulation last season about this very issue.
Okay, so if an active player drops out of a team or roster, the team doesn't drop them. They decide that they want to leave the tournament. Then a substitute player can take the active player's role, provided that they still meet the map requirements. So the map minimum requirement of 8 maps for the stage.
Okay.
And to reiterate, that's if a player chooses to, because as much as we love competition, we want inclusion too, and we don't want it to be super cutthroat where we're constantly cutting and adding people. Player leaves the tournament on their own volition. So like if they have personal issues or a time commitment issue and they have to leave on their own. So you can't just say, I want to cut Abyssal, he's not performing well. You can do that after the stage. They have to be signed up by the roster lock date. If you want a new batch of subs for stage 2, they can sign up anytime, as long as, I don't know if we have a date for roster lock for stage 2, but they need to be in before that date.
Correct. So yeah, so we're really going to be encouraging you guys to have some sort of sub roster because really the intent was changing inactives to subs to reduce the forfeits that we had a few of last season. We're just trying to avoid that. So we thought this would be one tool to help.
Stage 2 roster locks is February 21st. by the way.
That's a tentative date, but that's what the ballpark that we're working with.
So if no one's got anything else about post-draft rosters or any of the process,
One quick item I just wanted to mention. I wasn't sure if the vibe was going in this direction or not, but like when it comes to scrimming, you're not limited to scrimming teams and outlet. You're a coach. You have your team. You can scrim anyone you want, in outlet or not. Just wanted to make that clear.
I would actually encourage it because then you get you get kind of out of the outlet echo chamber because I think that it can get kind of, I don't want to say stale, but like you get kind of a fresher perspective. And for scrims as well, I mean, I guess I should just state this. Outside of official outlet um, matches or yeah, I guess matches and events, you're free to use any. You can use any sub you want in a scrim. They don't have to be registered, so you don't have to, as long as on match day, um, your roster is the roster you submitted. Other than that, you're free to run your team how you see fit. Moving on from the preseason, kind of the post-draft stage, talking a little bit about, I guess, what we're doing with broadcasting. So uh, last season, our big goal was to have the quantity of matches streamed. We had the goal to cast every single match of season 1, and we came awfully close to it. I think we only missed 3 or 4 out of 144. So I think we did, or was that 140? I don't know exactly how many matches were played, but we came very close. This season we're about quality. Um, so in a few days after the draft, you'll receive a form from one of the admins, and that's going to ask you for your roster, and that's not the official roster lock. You can just list your roster. It's going to ask for or everyone on your roster's top 3 players, maybe a little blurb about them, your team's logo if you have one. We're playing around with the idea of using the colorblind options in the spectator mode to kind of give teams colors like they do in Owl. So we're trying to figure out how we want to do that exactly. And once we do, of course, we'll announce it to you and we'll include that on the forum, but you would include your colors so that we can, deliver a high quality broadcast. And then, it'll ask for a whole bunch of information, and it's really just to give us more material, the casters more material to talk about your teams with. So it's a really cool chance to, um, get some good analysis or give the casters a lot of tools to give a really great broadcast. And that's really what we're going for this season. So once those come out, please fill those out. Did anybody have any questions about that? I know that's kind of short and sweet. Alrighty, cool. So we are also, I should have mentioned this with the post draft, sorry. We are planning on holding a second showcase. After the draft, it'll be for players that did not get drafted. So this will be a good chance to, kind of see the rest of the available talent. So we're going to do it pretty much exactly the same as we did over the weekend. So you'll get to see a lot of players and a lot of different roles on multiple maps, and we'll have it casted and streamed. So definitely turn out for those. We'll be trying to get a lot of signups for that. So that's also another good tool you can use. But if you guys are holding tryouts, keep at it. Definitely try to get as many people through your server as possible, just so you have your multiple options for players. Um, but other than that, that's all that's on our agenda. Um, I would now, before we get into any additional questions, I just want to open it up. If you guys have any feedback for us so far on how season 2 has been going, uh, I definitely would like to hear a perspective from new people as well as some returning people here, if anybody has anything.
So one thing about the showcase that I kind of complained about was that coaches weren't able to spectate, and I heard from the admin perspective as well that there's only like 7 slots to give out. Is it possible that I can recommend that we have a kind of coach form for whoever wants to spectate the tryout or the not tryout, the showcase, like are added to the lobby and then are rotated out per map?
It's something, I don't want to say it's impossible. It definitely does add another layer for the admin team. Um, but let us talk about that before we announce the next showcase, and if we think we're able to do it, we'll set that up.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any feedback with how things are going, positive or negative? We can take it.
I've got just a comment about the showcase. Like it was a huge help. One thing I was a little confused about for the majors showcase, I think Lulu, my coach, and I were the only ones to spectate majors for quite a few of the matches, and I'd really encourage the other majors team reps and coaches to attend because we got a lot of value listening to the comms and kind of getting a feel for who the players were and how they communicate and how they play.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely the biggest positive to having. I know tryouts are really good. Your private tryouts because you can get any map, you can make any situation you'd like. But just being able to hear the comms, as John said, is I think a huge value because it gives you a large volume of players very quickly, so you can kind of pinpoint who you think good performers would be, and then you could reach out and have them come to one of your private tryouts. So please definitely take advantage of the next one after the draft. If
Any other feedback? Any concerns? Anything that's made you feel frustrated? Anything that we did this time around that you liked?
One thing that might be helpful in the future is having the players in that initial form mention what their availability is, because I'm seeing a lot of players that initially I kind of wanted, but then I realized, oh hey, they're only available Fridays and Saturdays, which is kind of an issue.
Sure, I think that's a very good point. We'll work to add that into our signups. But if no one has any other feedback so far, does anybody have any questions about anything? And we can open it up to, I mean, I don't particularly want to talk about like playoffs or anything, but if you have any general outlet questions that um, didn't come up as a topic in this meeting, now is definitely the time if you'd like to ask.
Actually, I think something that I'd like to happen a lot more is transparency. So I know, Board, we talked about this. When I applied for the team, I didn't. It'd be nice to know how many slots are like able to be given out and to be applied for. So it's a lot less of a shocker when we get denied. That's just one
Sure.
thing like I'd like though. Just more transparency within Outlet, the community, and the
Sure.
admins in general.
I do apologize for the frustration there. We definitely did not expect um, the amount of team turnout that we had. Um, it took us a while to go through everything and kind of come up with I don't want to say the roster of teams, but the list of teams that we did. So I do apologize if it seems sort of fractured, and you didn't feel like you were getting the information. Um, but we definitely were not prepared for the turnout. We figured we'd have to deny some teams, but to put in perspective, for majors, we originally wanted to do 12 teams, 6 pre-made and 6 draft. We're now at 16 teams total with 10
8 per.
pre-mades,
Yes.
or no,
Is it
10
10
pre-mades and
pre-mades?
six draft, just because of the volume. So we really, I don't want to say that we were like chickens with our heads cut off, but like we definitely did not we underestimated the I guess the popularity that majors would have. So going forward, we definitely will prepare to have more signups than not.
All right, thank you.
Oh, and I will say, I forgot to mention this at the top. If any of you know another coach or anybody that might be interested in coaching, definitely send them this way. We've got just a couple of spots left. We also have some team captains on majors that are still looking for coaches. Um, so if you know anybody that might want to do it, they don't need to have experience. They just need to basically they need to understand the game, and they need to have sort of the drive to be a solid coach. Um, so basically, we don't want any jerks. But like if you know somebody that would want to kind of give it a shot, I think that we pride ourselves on being the place that people can start, whether it's playing, casting, or coaching. So definitely let your friends know if anybody's interested. But if no one has anything else, if any other admins have anything, please.
I'm not sure if you mentioned this yet, but there will be a full team orientation for preseason and stage 1 and everything like that, and that is the 13th. Time isn't decided, but it'll probably be around 8 p.m. Eastern. That'll be another opportunity for you to ask any questions, and we'll focus more about preseason, stage 1 roster stuff like that.
And I'm sorry if I already said this, but Dr. Drangus is our resident graphics artist on the admin team. So if any teams are having trouble coming up with a logo or would like something done, you could definitely consult with him and he'll do his best to help you out. But if no one else has anything, I think that'll probably do it. This will probably be the shortest one of the season. But if anybody has anything, speak up now. Otherwise, really good first meeting. Thank you for everyone that turned out. I think that this season is looking really good on all fronts. I was blown out of the water by the amount of signups and the amount of good vibes that we've gotten so far. So I'm really looking forward to what this season has in store.
I wasn't here at the beginning, so I might have missed it. But how are we going to know the order of the draft coaches?
So we're actually doing the draft order. We'll probably release it tomorrow, but it will be in a snake style. So it'll obviously one for majors, one for minors, and we'll release the order with the head coaches of each. So it'll be Team A, Team B, Team C, Team C, Team B, Team A for 6 rounds. Does that make sense?
Right.
And we'll release it hopefully with a graphic that'll give a visual representation of exactly how it'll work. All right. If anybody has any other questions that you think of later in the middle of the night when we can't sleep, just send a message to Outmail and we'll do our best to answer it as quickly as we can. But other than that, everyone, enjoy the rest of your night and get cracking on those tryouts.
Bort, can I ask you on a date really quick?
Oh man, I'm flattered.
Shit.